Okay.
You don't have the PDF.
I'm going to check on
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Richard, are you in Florida?
I'm at Romemu Boynton.
yeah.
Nice.
Good morning. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Shalom, Rob.
Shalom. Chodesh Tov. Shabbat Shalom. Hi, Asher Chaim. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Ellen. Oh, good to see you here, Ellen. Hi, Debbie in Florida. Paul.
Oh,
I love seeing the boxes come alive. Hi, Alan. Lori Shores, it looks like that picture. She's on the beach somewhere. Hi, Jay. Valerie.
Are you ready to drop the link?
Oh, yes, I can drop the link. Exactly. Here we go. I think this is it. Nope, that's join Zoom. Hold on one second. Oh, Seal, you just did it. Okay, excellent. Hi, Aluma. Good to see you. Hi, Richard. Hey. Hi, Roberta. Good morning. Okay, we have a little, we've got a hybrid open book today, but I'm not there. I'm actually in Newton, Mass, with my friend and chavruta Sharon Cohn-Annisfeld. So that's fun. It's a lot of fun. I'm here for the weekend. And who's in person? It's Elliot Figman and Zoe, and who else? I can't see. Paul. Oh, nice. Great. Okay. Excellent. Paul from Connecticut. Okay. So the ingathering of the exiles into this sacred space. I love it. I think we're ready for the blessing over Torah study. Celia, if you can screen share that. And Paul Solomon, would you like to recite that today? Would that?
sure. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. Hang on.
La'asok.
La'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen, amen, amen. Blessed are you, source of the universe and of all wisdom and revelation, for gathering us today in the presence of Torah and giving us the blessing of new insights and new revelation. Okay, so today's a big day. We're 2 weeks away from Pesach, and today is a special Shabbat. It's called HaChodesh. So there are 4 special Shabbatot and special Parshiot, special portions that qualify these special Sabbaths leading up to Passover. They start before Purim and they go from Shkalim Zachor Para HaChodesh. So this is the last one, okay? And next week is Shabbat HaGadol, the grand Shabbat, the great Shabbat before the Seders. So here we are, we're like building up the drama and the tension leading up to the Seder. And today specifically, I want to look at the reading that we read today for Shabbat HaChodesh, because it puts us right into Pesach, right into the origins of the Seder. And it's a really exciting, complicated, disturbing passage, the best of all the Torah has to give us. And I'm going to take you there right now with sharing my screen. So let's go. Let's see. Just a few reminders. Oops. Let me try that again. That didn't work. It did work? I didn't see it. Didn't work. It didn't work for me. Let's see. Let me try this again. Sorry, everybody. Let's see. Okay. Aha! Now it's working for me. Is it working for everybody else? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. And so just to orient everybody, I'm in Newton, Massachusetts with my friend Chavrita, Rabbi Sharon Cohn-Anisfeld. So that's really exciting. I'm in the Hebrew College campus and Sharon's office. And some people are meeting hybrid and in person at Romemu, and everyone else, well, you know where you are. So I'm calling this breaking open time. And so this again is from the special reading from HaChodesh, and it's from Exodus 12, 1 through 20. We're not going to get to the whole passage. I put a lot of sources on this page. I urge you to look at all of them because they're all wonderful. And right now we're going to start at the beginning of chapter 12. Okay, so just to give a little context. The Israelites are about to leave Egypt. The 10th and most lethal plague is about to happen. And we kind of like stop the action. And there's this, I'm just going to turn off my text. Hold on a second. Okay. Stop the action and with this kind of wild instruction. So I want to invite you, since this happens, what we're talking about here in time, in terms of the new month of Nisan, is today, right? So I want to see if you can all I want to invite you all to put yourself like in Egypt. You're about to leave Egypt, and we stop the action, and this is the instruction that happens. So think about what the Israelites must have been feeling at this, terrifying moment. Okay, so Vayomer Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aharon, God says to Moshe and to Aharon, Be'eretz Mitzrayim lemor, HaChodesh hazeh lachem, let this month be for you, or really, this month is for you. Rosh Chodashim, the beginning of months, it is for you. Lechodshei Hashana, right, for the months of the year. I think the translation got a little bit cut off, sorry about that. Okay, so Rashi has some interesting comments here, and I want us to think about this also in terms of like how we interpret the Torah. And I grew up with this question going to Yeshiva Flapa Shaman Orthodox Yeshiva in Brooklyn. The question is, what's bothering Rashi? So if there's an anomaly in the text, if there's something that or doesn't quite make sense, like Rashi is bothered and Rashi has to explain what's going on in the text. So let's look at the possible anomalies here. So usually it says, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe. God said to Moshe. It doesn't say, and Aaron. So first of all, why is God speaking to Moshe and Aaron together? And HaChodesh hazeh lachem. It's just an interesting, it's interesting, like this locution of this month is for you. So we're going to look at that. Okay, so first, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe ve'el Haron, and the Lord spoken to Moses and to Aaron. So Rashi has to explain that. Bishvil she'Aharon asa v'tarach b'moftim k'Moshe chalak lo kavod zeh b'mitzvah rishona shekilalu im Moshe b'dibur. Because Aaron had worked and toiled in performing the wonders just the same as Moses, God paid Aaron this honor at the first command. So this is the first instruction in the book of Exodus. And some say really the first mitzvah, although you could say there's some mitzvot in Genesis as well that have to do with kashrut and other things, by including him with Moses in the communication. Okay, so now Rashi's explained why Aaron is included here. And then, HaChodesh hazeh. So first, Rashi draws on a classical midrash, right? By saying, God showed Moshe the moon in the first stage of its renewal. Her'ahu levana bechidusha, v'amar lo, kishehayareach mitchadesh yelecha rosh chodesh. And God said to him, the time when the moon renews itself, thus shall be unto you the beginning of the month. So HaChodesh hazeh can be interpreted as the new month or the new moon, And here the Midrash is talking about this ancient system that developed where in order to establish when the new moon was, a Beit Din, a court of three, got together and had to witness the first sighting of the new moon, right? That little sliver, and then lit fires so that people in other places would know that there was a sighting of the new moon, and that's how the new moon was established. Okay, so that's number one. So actually here we're not talking about so much lachem, the word for you, but we're talking about hachodesh hazeh, this. So God is the image in the Midrash, which is sort of expounded upon elsewhere, is that God actually pointed to the moon, which is part of the way we now establish the sighting of the new moon. There's like a pointing, that's part of the ritual in the sanctification of the new month. Okay, but then Rashi says something different. Ve'ein mikra yotzei midei pshuto. So Rashi cites this midrashic interpretation, which is very concrete. And that says, but, well, maybe there's something else here. Maybe we really shouldn't interpret it that way. Because Rashi says no scriptural verse can lose its literal meaning. So a simpler read, a more contextual read. And what is that? That God really spoke this in reference to the month Nisan, that this month shall be the beginning in the order of counting the months, so that Iyar shall be called the second and Sivan the third. So, in other words, all God is doing here is pointing out that this is going to be the first month. So when my Chavrita and I were studying this morning, we were thinking like, what is really the force of each of these interpretations? And one is like such a beautiful image of God, right? God is showing Moshe, Moses in a very concrete way. You see, right? You see, that's the moon. That's what it looks like, right? That's how you're going to measure time. Right? And the other one is, okay, this is like the beginning of the year. This is the beginning potentially of a new way of life, a different kind of time. Did I miss something? Not to put anybody on the spot.
But I can't unmute is the only part, because then I'm gonna, get.
Oh, I think we can hear you from here. Yeah.
I don't think they can.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
You can unmute. Yeah, you can unmute.
Okay,
Yeah, even though your sound's off, you can unmute. Let's see if it works.
okay. I'm just worried it's gonna, revert. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Sure.
I think it's exactly what you just said. It feels like there are, part of what we're going to be exploring is sort of our relationship to time, in general, different layers of our relationship to time, but it feels very poignant here. Two layers are sort of, one is what you were describing, this kind of tender, God pointing to the new moon in this phase and saying, like, look at that. That's what it looks like. That's how you'll know some new cycle is beginning. Like, just look at that moon and recognize that. And that's how you'll know. And then the other is God saying, you're going to start a new counting from here. Start counting now. The months are going to, follow from here. So one feels much more sort of in the moment and looking at the natural world for this image of what a new beginning looks like. And then the other feels like sort of setting us on a new path in terms of how we're counting time in a way that we couldn't when we were enslaved. Anyway, that's
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And I love this, like, just upstanding.
Diane, you're muted. Diane, you're muted. You're muted.
Thank you. Especially, so God is saying, like, to Moshe, like, this is what newness looks like. And especially at moments of terror, right? Like, this just, fraught moment where they're still in Egypt. Like, the concrete image, I think, works much better than the abstract, right? Just like pointing something out. pointing newness out? Like, what are you sort of missing in this sort of moment of terror when you're not sure you're going to make it out? Okay, good. So now let's look at Sforno. Sforno, a medieval commentator, says, "Chodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim." From now on, these months will be yours to do with as you like. Mikan ve'elach yuyu hachodashim shelachem lasot bahem kiritzonechem. But in the years when you were enslaved, your days did not belong to you, but were service to others and their wills. Aval bimei hashi'ibud lo hayu yimechem shelachem. Aval hayu la'avodat achayim v'ritzonam. Accordingly, Lefichach rishon hu lachem l'chodshei hashana ki vo hitchil mitziutchem habichiri. Accordingly, this month will be the first one for you of the year, because in it starts your own reality in which you have choice. So I'm going to read one more, and then we'll discuss both of them. So I called this your time, because in it, the slaves who didn't have time, their time begins. And then the Ishbitzer says, that is to say, the power of the month will be for you that you should be able to renew yourself in words of Torah and in your actions. So this is more about like God's time, which feels to me, actually, the second one feels more faithful to the text, because we're about to be called upon in this moment to do service and to obey God's instruction. And the other one feels like just more modern, like, is our time ours? And how many of us feel, even though we are not, God forbid, enslaved, that our days and our time doesn't belong to us? Like, when do we feel our time belongs to us? Or when do we feel like our time belongs to God? All interesting questions. Okay, so I'm going to end this little piece, this kind of introduction, with a poem. And then I'll open to see if there are any comments, and then we will go forward. So I love this poem, which I discovered yesterday from a teaching that Reverend Eleanor Harrison Bregman had done at Romemu a while back, related to Passover. Snowdrops. Do you know what I was, how I lived? You know what despair is. Then winter should have meaning for you. I did not expect to survive, earth suppressing me. I didn't expect to waken again, to feel in damp earth my body, able to respond again, remembering after so long how to open again in the cold light of earliest spring. Afraid, yes, but among you again, crying, yes, risk joy in the raw wind of the new world. So I think like these verses could look like, an instruction, another mitzvah, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, this month be for you. But how profound it is to be granted time, right? To be granted a system of calendar, and sort of communal sacred time. So I think that's just a huge gift and a sign, like the first sign of how slaves become free people. Okay, let's see if there are any comments. There are comments. And I'm going to invite especially the people who are, regular commentators, love to hear from you, and would love to hear from people who don't usually say anything, just opening up that space. No pressure. Okay, Amy from Tallahassee.
I know that the Egyptians began their year in July, but the Babylonians began their year on the 1st of Nisan. And so I'm wondering if, in your knowledge of the situation, was the 1st of Nisan sort of a general cultural time to begin, since the Babylonians did it also?
There were two. You go ahead.
Or was this something that was unique, and because the Jews started it, it became more widespread?
I don't know about the beginning of the calendar for other ancient Near Eastern cultures. What I do know is that that this was a time of two pastoral holidays, one related to agriculture and one related to shepherding and the cycle of animal births that the Israelites sort of took up and gave it historical meaning. So the Paschal lamb and the matzah, right, were representatives, so to speak, or sort of features of two different holidays that the Israelites brought together. Good question about the calendar. If someone knows, drop it into the chat, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miriam Margot.
Shabbat Shalom, Boker Or. I just thought, I wrote it in the chat, but it relates so much to Tazria because it's talked about the woman emitting a seed and being as the earth and the flowering. It goes so well with Nisan and the beautiful poem, The New Life, that was a surprise, not expected to come out. It reminds me so much of the history of the Jewish people who came out and flowered from the darkness so many times. So Tazria, the time of year, it all seems to be coinciding with this blossoming from the darkness.
Beautiful. And one of the names of Pesach, or Passover, in the Torah is Chag HaAviv. It's the holiday of the spring. And we often think of Rosh Hashanah as the head of the year, but this time is actually when our calendar begins, when it's like the new year and the first month. Rosh Hashanah happens in the 7th month, right? So that's really interesting. But yes, such a beautiful image of flowering and growth. And, I think a lot about like the self-help movement in this country, which is, interesting and abundant. And I think it's, as far as I can sense from it, and I've certainly been interested in it, used it, it's all about gaining control of life, but birth and growth and spring is all about giving over to forces that are greater than you, right? The forces of birth and growth and conception. So just something to think about.
And the 7th month is a reflection of the 7 days. That's a sign of completion, even though we're rebirth.
Sign of completion and sanctity and Kedusha. Absolutely. Okay, anyone else? Ooh, okay, so we're going to do more text then. Okay. Richard, are you raising your hand or you're, yes? Okay, go ahead.
There we go. So Tazria means, among other things, birth. In a sense, what we're talking about is the birth of a civilization at this time of year.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think it's an appropriate moment to note that you're being honored at the Heller Museum of the HUC at their museum at 1 West 4th Street. They've picked 24 leading women rabbis to be honored by pieces of art that have been done by other women artists. And that those images and pieces are on display now at the museum. And so Rabbi Diana is one of the 24 as a leading woman. This is being done because this is the 50th anniversary of Sally Priesand being ordained by HUC. And also she was the first woman to say the invocation at the House of Representatives at the instance of Bella Abzug, who represents the district I live in New York, and Elizabeth. And Elizabeth actually worked for Bella when that happened and wrote the speech that Bella gave introducing her to Congress. Anyway, Diana's being honored, and you should all go to the display. If you'd like to attend the major opening, you can register online at the Heller Museum website.
Okay, I didn't expect to be outed like that, Richard.
Well, I think you really deserve it. And the
thank you.
Open book things that you've been doing are one of the reasons why, as a Syrian heritage rabbi, is together with your obvious knowledge and teaching ability, are the reasons why you're being honored.
Oh, thank you so much, Richard. I invite you all to come to the opening. The openings are on Wednesday and Thursday night. I will be there on Thursday night And if you want information, we actually put it in Romemu now this week, but you can always email me and I'll send you links and information. Okay, thank you very much. And now I'm going back to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about the instruction to the Israelites. Dabru el kol adat Yisrael lemor ba'asor lachodesh hazeh vayikchu lahem ish seh levet avot sela bayit. So speak to the community leadership of Israel and say that on the 10th of this month, each of them shall take a lamb to a family, a lamb to a household. And the next verse is really interesting. V'im yim'at habayit mihiyot miseh v'lakachu shcheno hakarov el beito b'michsat nefashot. Ish lefi ochlo tachosu al haseh. But if the household is too small for a lamb, let it share one with a neighbor who dwells nearby in proportion to the number of persons. You shall contribute for a lamb according to what each household shall eat. So if your household, if you're single, if you're, or just two people to your family, whatever it is, you know, a lamb is way too much, then you join forces. And again, I was talking about this with my chavruta, and we're saying like, there's no principle explained here. It's very concrete and immediate. It's not like, oh, don't leave anybody out. Like, no, this is what you do. Like, it's very simple, unadorned instruction. Set tamim zachar ben shana yelachem min hakvasim umin ha'isim tikachu. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a yearling male. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. So let's see what these commentators say about, let's look at the Rambam specifically. The Egyptians were accustomed to worshiping the zodiacal sign of the lamb. So this accords with others who say that the Egyptians worshiped the lamb. That was why they forbade the slaughter of cattle and despised shepherds. So remember in Genesis, right? When the brothers came to visit or to see Joseph, he made it clear that the Egyptians found shepherds an abomination. And that's why they had to eat separately and they settled separately. And, at some point there was like, oh, don't mention that you're shepherds. And then there are a few verses in Shmot in Exodus as well that sort of, points to this. There's something about being a shepherd is like shameful and an abomination. So the theory here is, they worship the lamb, and that's why you can't be a shepherd. For this reason, we were commanded to slaughter a lamb on Pesach and sprinkle its blood in Egypt on the doors outside to cleanse ourselves of these ideas and demonstrate publicly our rejection of them. So fascinating idea. And Rabbi Ingber often speaks about this. And it's an interesting idea. And I was, we were talking this morning and I was thinking about like, what would this mean, right? So if you're going into Egypt, for instance, and being a shepherd is an abomination, and you are a shepherd and you sort of have to closet yourself, and then perhaps you internalize the shame and how liberating it would be, right, to sacrifice, right, the God that the Egyptians worship that has to do with why you're an abomination in that culture. And I was thinking there's not an exact analogy, but like, ageism in this society, like, I'm embarrassed to say my age, even though I have no control over my age. I think it's so crazy. It's the one thing we have no control over, right? It's like my age, 61. I'm coming out with it right now, right now. But there is this internalized shame. There is like, oh, I can't really, what are people going to think of me if I'm like, they know that I'm that old? Like, what's going to, and it's like, and what would it mean? What would it mean? Like, what would we have to sacrifice? Like, the image of youth in our society and how we worship that. So interesting. And I also think about, we just had Transgender Day. Like, what would it mean to like really sort of, liberate ourselves and come out as being who we are, no matter what our society is telling us about the shame associated with that. And the other thing I think about is like the illness associated with illness, which is so ironic because not only are you ill and suffering, but you're also shamed or disability. I mean, I can go on and on. We could all go on and on about this. So I think this is a really, really powerful thought. I have other texts on this page, but I'm not going to go into them. Okay. Sorry, that's why I'm skipping. I'm just explaining. Okay. So we're going to look at 11 and then let's see where we get to. Okay. So let's see what happens next. So we're going to sacrifice that lamb here. Okay. והיה לכם למשמרת עד 14 יום לחודש הזה, ושחטו אותו כל קהל עדת ישראל בין הערביים. He shall keep watch over it until the 14th day of this month, and all the assembled congregation of the Israelites shall slaughter it at twilight. Sounds very mysterious, right? At twilight. ולקחו מן הדם ונתנו על שתי המזוזות ועל משקוף על הבתים אשר יאכלו אותו בהם. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintels of the houses in which they are to eat it. Okay, we're going to think about that blood in a few minutes. But I want to, actually, let me say here that the Midrash says that blood on the doorpost, on the lintel, and they also say on the doorstep, is as if Israel had four altars. So even though the lamb is completely consumed, it's as if they made an offering or a sacrifice, even though it really departs from the later descriptions of sacrifices. Okay, and so here is the first Passover, right? Here it is. They shall eat the flesh that same night. They shall eat it roasted over fire with unleavened bread and with bitter herbs. So I love, everything at the Seder is so elemental and pure. Al tochlu mimenu na uvashel mivushal b'mayim ki im sli esh rosho al kra'av v'al kirbo. Do not eat any of it raw or cooked in any way with water. Boiled is not the way to go, right? It's about fire here, but roasted, head, legs, and entrails over the fire. One sort of critical approach to this is that this all had to do with speed, right? The matzah, they didn't have time to bake it, and it's quicker to roast meat, according to one scholar, than to boil it. V'lo totiru mimenu ad boker. V'hanotar mimenu ad boker ba'esh tisrofu. Again, fire. You shall not leave any of it until the morning, but if any of it is left until morning, you shall burn it. V'kacha tochlu oto. This is how you shall eat it. Matnechem chagurim. Your loins girded. V'na'alechem beraglechem. U'makalchem b'yadchem. Your sandals on your feet and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly. Right? Ve'achaltem oto b'chipazon pesachu Adonai. You shall eat it hurriedly. It is a Passover offering to Adonai. So you're in a rush, right? It's such an interesting moment because they don't have any time to do this, and yet they're taking time to do this. Right? They need to leave town as soon as possible, but somehow they're taking time to celebrate the first Passover before they have freedom, and they're still in Egypt. Such a strange, mysterious moment, which we're going to talk about in a minute, why that would be. Okay. V'haya hadam lachem le'ot al habatim asher atem sham, v'ra'iti et hadam u'pasachti alechem, v'lo yeh bachem negev, l'mashchit b'hakoti ba'eretz Mitzrayim. And the blood on the houses where you are staying shall be a sign for you. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, so that no plague will destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. So this blood is protective. This blood means that God won't spill their blood, right? But the blood of the firstborn of the Egyptians. At
least we didn't have lamb for dinner.
This day shall be to you one of remembrance. You shall celebrate it as a festival to Adonai throughout the ages. You shall celebrate it as an institution for all time. So this is really interesting. So, it's when we're most in danger and most suffering that it's hard to think about a different moment. Like you're sort of stuck in that moment, almost pinned to it with fear and anxiety and terror. But here we're being told, you may be in a rush. You may not have any time, but this moment right now shall be to you one of remembrance, right? You're going to look back at this moment, so interesting, and celebrate it as a festival forever, right? To think about this moment and its implications in eternity for future generations. So powerful. And it's so different than, stopping my share, so different than, the mindfulness and Buddhism, which I'm like very taken with. And I've actually begun to practice mindfulness and being really influenced by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I actually talked about him in one of my recent sermons. And it's really powerful to be in the present, but it's also powerful. And maybe this is the Jewish difference. I have no idea. I don't know enough about Buddhism to say. It's also powerful to think about, how is this moment going to turn into story? How is it going to be remembered? What is the implications for future generations? And to live like that, wow. In a way, it puts so much of a burden on us. And yet, there's something about it that I think is freeing. Asher Chaim agrees. Okay, now I see a whole lineup. Love it. Okay, so Beth, Laura, Roberta Wall, Ellen. I think that's it. So let me just say 1 point each, not multiple points, please. And Ellen's laughing, and concise, so we can hear lots of voices. And I want to invite people who don't usually speak. Okay. And God knows what I'm missing in the chat. I'm sure it's great, but I'm missing it. Okay, Beth.
Shabbat Shalom. What I'm struck by, the celebration of Pesach, when we're not even free yet, it reminds me of last week's Parsha, right after the sons get swallowed up, and Aharon is standing there stunned, and Moshe says something that is the equivalent of, let's praise God and God's mightiness, which I take as kind of a pre-echo of the Mourner's Kaddish, which gets institutionalized later.
Nice, Beth.
And so I think there are various intersections within our tradition where we get these little hints of what's coming later. And I think this is a great example of that.
Yeah, I think, great, Beth. Thank you. And just to give one more image about like what it means to be in a moment and then thinking about the story later on, like, I remember once I was stuck by the side of the road and it was night and I was terrified and I was with a friend, and just like that simple thing, like, oh, one day we're going to tell this story. We're going to laugh about it. Right. And it's reassuring, and it kind of gives you the strength to go on. Okay. So Laura, and I also see Paul has raised his hand, and Ronnie. Go ahead. Yeah, at the end of the lineup. Laura. Lori. Isn't that Laura Prescott?
It's still Lori Walco.
Oh, it's Lori Walco. Oh my God, you have the same hair. That's so interesting. Okay.
So I'm here with Arnie Meyer, and maybe be learning with Arnie.
Oh, Arnie.
So I'm hoping.
Oh, Arnie. I'm so happy that Arnie's in the room. Thank you, Lori. Thank you so much.
So, what struck me was that, even in your day, as, you're rushing around, and even, while you're rushing around to get out of slavery, like, we all have to, may we all be freed from our Mitzrayim during this time. Take a breath and be in mindfulness and be with those rituals, be with the rituals that sustain you, that will sustain you as you go from slavery into freedom, and find the space and take your time. And like Aluma was saying, like this liminal time, like just take the time to breathe and make time in your day to to be uplifted by all your spiritual practices.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lori. And I want to pass on to Arnie a refuah shlema from this entire community. So I just want to invite everybody to turn their healing thoughts and prayers to Arnie at this moment. But Lori, I love what you're saying about like making time as a practice in our crazy, insane days, and even or not in our crazy, insane, whatever our days are. Like, how do you sort of open up the moment and sort of really dwell in it? Okay, Roberta.
Shabbat Shalom. Hi, Arnie. Old friends. I'm just getting this sense, Rabbi Diane and everyone, like what we're doing now is exactly what they're talking about. Like we're in this cycle of Torah, and we're like, what happened to Tazria? And here we are focusing on preparing for Pesach at the same time. So,
Nice.
so it's that it's this total step into non-dual time, that there's cyclical, which is continuation, repeating, and total newness. And even the newness, though, of course, is cyclical because it's every year. So we are, as a chavrusa here, we've stepped into these overlapping circles of time, and I think doing what you're saying, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about doing, is finding past, present, future, continuation, newness in the same moment. And just one little example for me, I just had a whole new take on the women doing a circle dance after they crossed the sea, that it wasn't a linear dance so we can get further away from Egypt. It was like claiming freedom right here. We're going to do a circle dance, even though they're chasing us. We're going to be caught again and again and again. And yet where we are, we do a circle dance. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, what beautiful images. You captured the essence of the session and said it better. So thank you. Love it. Okay. So in 5 minutes, I'm going to go back to the text. So wherever we get to, okay. So I'm going to invite everybody to hold that time with me collectively. In 5 minutes, I'm going to give it 9:35. I need to get back to the text because otherwise we're not going to get to the point. Okay. Ellen, welcome, Ellen.
Hello. So I'd like to circle back to verse 4 because I got stuck there for a minute. I'm reading from the Fox translation. And if there be too few in the house for a lamb, he is to take it, he and his neighbor who is near his house, by the computation according to the total number of persons, each man, I wish it said person, but according to what he can eat, you are to compute for the lamb. So the lamb, it kind of has a soul here almost, and it's very modern. It's like, don't waste food. Don't waste parts of this precious animal. Only take what you can use and what you can eat. And if you know that it's too much for you, offer it to your neighbor. And so
Love it.
That had some meaning for me. And I just want to mention that one year I decided I would do sort of the dinner exactly as prescribed here. I made roast lamb. I served it with matzah and bitter herbs. Boy, were there complaints. Where's the brisket? Where's the chicken? Where's the kugel? And what you said about in haste, like this roasting is quicker, certainly a quicker cooking method than making grandma's brisket, And so now, just like we relax, we eat reclining, so to speak, we can take our time with long cooked meals.
Okay,
So,
great. I'm
see what
going
was
to go on,
wrong.
Ellen. I think it's a great, fabulous point. So much for the ancient Seder. I love it. or the Torah's Seder. We really live in the rabbinic Seder, which I could say more about, but I won't right now. So thank you. Beautiful. Nehemiah.
Shabbat Shalom, happy spring and happy Nisan. Happy Nisan. Wow, I celebrated 3 days ago my 74 years around the sun. And I never felt so young in spirit as I feel now. And I raised more money for my...
Okay, Nehemiah, one quick point.
Okay, the point. The point is this, that we gain in our tradition. Don't do this, be happy.
Okay, go ahead. No, I'm totally listening to you. Go ahead.
We are celebrating a new freedom of choice. All Romemu in our relationship to the tradition, that we can do a mitzvah and lader mitzvah and to glorify mitzvah in the way that we feel. So I celebrate that every month since my sister in spirit, Evelyn Goodman Bracha, Manora, my left, I'm following the Ari and I'm fasting. And even on Sabbath, I'm fasting because for me, fasting is Oneg Shabbat. For me, fasting is joy. So I can follow my heart rather than follow the tradition. And I follow here Ari Kaddish, the only one in our tradition that we dare to call Rabbeinu HaElohi, Yitzchak, like the Buddhists call the Dalai Lama. It's a symbol of where tradition can become non-dualistic and say that we are divine, and Rabbi Yitzchak and all of us are divine.
Beautiful. So this, beautiful. Shamati. Thank you so much, Nehemiah. So this time, it's not only a renewal of time, it's a renewal of the tradition. Thank you, Nehemiah. Okay, Paul.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
For me, the power of Exodus 12, 13, 14 about a sign for you is that you must, in advance of God taking you out of Egypt, you must declare yourself publicly. You must have the courage to say, I am with you. I am part of this revolutionary action. We're not going to hide our identity as shepherds anymore. We're not going to hide our Jewish boy babies. We are publicly saying, we are fighting back. We are leaving.
We are not beholden to the system. We are not part of the system.
Right.
Beautiful, Paul. Thank you. Okay, I think I called on Aluma next. And then here's the lineup I see. Aluma, Ronnie, Lori, Reb Zusha. But we're not going to get to everybody now. I'm going to do one more piece, and hopefully we're going to have enough time to get to everybody. Aluma.
Thank you. I'm really drawn to and taken to the part that this is happening in liminal time, and that you actually need ritual. Ritual creates liminal time anyway. So you have two pieces of liminality here, entering ritual, but also the blending of day and night. And they're at a point in their life when they are going to be blending these different aspects of life. So the ritual occurring before they leave makes total sense. It's an integrative way to learn how to pause, to learn to let go of something else and bring something else in. The whole place of liminality is a place of really learning how to move forward. And that kind of goes with this week's Parsha too. You know, people having to be on their own for a while, you know, entering that between time.
It's beautiful. So this dusk, Bein Ha'arbayim, right, between the evenings, I guess, literally, is like a between time, and also the doorway is a liminal place. So that's really powerful. Okay, I promised 9:35. It's now 9:36. So everyone just hold on. I'm going to do a few more texts, and I'll come back to you, God willing. Okay. Okay, so talk about liminality. Everyone, please mute themselves. So here, right, in the 14th text on the page, this day shall be to you one of remembrance. You shall celebrate it as a festival to Adonai. L'dorotechem, throughout the ages. So not only is God saying like, oh, this is what you're going to do every year, but you're going to have generations. You're going to make it. You're going to survive. And who we belong to, right? Or who the holiday belongs to. Chag la Adonai. Chukat olam, an eternal, right? An eternal law. Tichaguhu. You shall celebrate. So here specifically are what we're supposed to do, right? Shivat yamim matzot tochelu, 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. And then there's a lot of specifics about this, which I think we don't have to read, about leavening and matzah, and again, the bare elements that the rabbis, like rabbinic Judaism, took and amplified and made it, who just said this, as a time where we're sort of, Ellen Shapiro, as a luxurious time, as opposed to we're running out of town kind of time, which is how it begins. So I want to say a few things. Well, I want to tell you a quick little anecdote that I had recently. So I was watching this television series earlier in the pandemic called Pose, which is about transgender people of color in the 80s at the height of the AIDS epidemic. And as I was watching it at the height of our own epidemic, I just started crying and really sobbing because, much to the chagrin of my young adult daughter, she's like, what is going on here? Because I remember the height of AIDS, and I was living in the village, attending NYU at the time, and remember people walking around the West Village looking like they were about to die. And I was sobbing not only because I didn't really realize what I was living in then, and this television series was teaching me what story I was living in then and telling that story, but also because of the moment we were in and imagining the television series 20, 30, 40 years from now, and how it's going to tell the story of this great loss and sacrifice and death and, and terror. How can we even realize what we're living through? So Rabbi Steve Cohn, who's my chavruta's brother, Rabbi Sharon Cohn-Anisfeld's brother, wrote this beautiful sermon, and this is excerpted, and about sort of being in this moment and imagining another moment and how the story is going to be told. And I'm going to invite Sharon to read it. What? Oh, I have to mute. Yes. I have to mute and turn off my sound. Okay.
Great. Can you hear? Yeah. So this is from a drash that my brother wrote 2 years ago, sort of just before the first Pesach of the pandemic. Passover is coming. In less than 2 weeks, Jews all over the world will retell our ancient story of one endless night over 3,000 years ago, during which the angel of death moved through the land and we sheltered in place. Huddled in our homes with a mark of blood smeared on our doorposts, praying for protection and for our lives and the lives of our parents and our children. This year, the old Passover story, out of our distant past, is suddenly speaking directly to us. Not only to us, the Jewish people, but to all of us, the entire human family. We all understand that right now we are living through the great story of our time. After this is over, the world will not be the same. Like the Jews huddled in their homes on the terrible night of the 10th plague, we have no idea how long it will last or how it will end. But we do know that there will be a time, years from now, when people will tell the story of the pandemic of 2020. Tonight, I want to send a message to the future, to the storytellers of the future, a message from all of us here in the middle of the story. Perhaps one Passover night, 30 years from now, or 50 years from now, or 100 years from now, you will raise the matzah at the start of the Seder and proclaim, "This is the bread of affliction that our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Let all who are hungry come and eat." When you recite those words, you might add to those seated at your table. In fact, it happened during the pandemic of 2020 that as the world economy shut down, millions of good, steady jobs disappeared overnight all over the globe, and hardworking, responsible men and women found themselves without money to feed their families. It can happen to anyone. It did happen that year. Let the matzah of your Seder remind you of our time when the entire human family felt deeply insecure. And nevertheless, many came forward in every land and also here in Santa Barbara to donate money and food, to cook and to deliver, to call and check in, to assist and to encourage their friends, their neighbors, and complete strangers. Finally, when you tell the story of this pandemic, whoever you are, and in whatever year in the distant future you are living, please make sure to tell the praises of our healthcare workers. In fact, tell that part of the story in song, with music, because words alone cannot capture the quality of heroism that we are seeing manifested every day in the emergency rooms, the waiting rooms, and the intensive care units. The nurses, doctors, technicians, pre-hospital first responders, the police and the firefighters, and the emergency medical technicians. When you come to tell the story of our world turned upside down, sing songs about these medical women and men. Will you tell it? Was it recorded and was it remembered that in cities around the world, in Spain, in Israel, in Seattle, in India, people went out on their balconies at 8 p.m. every night and made noise, cheering and clapping and banging on pots and pans, all in honor of the healthcare workers. That should be part of your Passover Seder, whoever you are, telling this story years from now. Sing songs and bang pots in honor of our healthcare heroes.
Wow. What a stunning piece of liturgy, really, much more than a sermon, and helps us understand our moment. It's hard to say anything after that, but we do have a few more minutes, and there were a few hands of people waiting, so I'm going to invite Ronnie Scharfman, if you're still in the house, Ronnie. No, Ronnie, you sure? Okay. I'm going to invite Reb Zusha.
Okay. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I was thinking about what the Zohar Chadash says. It says about wisdom is to know and contemplate the mystery of God and to know yourself. And I was thinking about at the very, very start of the Parsha, where it talks about, I was thinking about immanent and transcendent, meaning that Hashem, you know, we read the statement that says what's bothering Rashi, right? I almost heard what's bothering Hashem, because we start out with Hashem saying, hey, look, check it out, new moon. Cool. What do we do with that, Moses? What's up with the new moon? Oh, yeah, okay, so this new moon is to tell you about the first, right? It's to tell you about Nisan. Oh, okay, cool. What are we supposed to do now? Okay, now you're supposed to take this lamb. Oh, okay, cool. And we're going to kill it. Do what? And then you're going to take the blood. Oh, what are we going to do with the blood? Don't have an altar. That was a little deal with the altar, what you're talking about. Oh, great. We're just going to throw it on the door. Okay. Okay, we're going to, and you're going to eat it. You're going to eat it all. I'm just talking about the profundity of what's going on right now, what must have been going through, because I can't deal with it, what's going through the Israelites' mind at that point in time with all the rush. You know, we talk about this during Shabbat. It's all about rush. Get it done, get it done, get it done. And I just think the profundity of it is don't get caught up in all those little minutiae. Get caught up enjoying the ride, enjoying the mystery of God. Just enjoy it. And
love that message.
Huh?
Thank you. That's a beautiful message.
Just a thought.
And I love the question of what's bothering God. I'd like to know.
Good.
Okay, we have thank you, Rev Zusha. We have 3 minutes, maybe 4. We have a bunch of hands, so let's go Quick, I want to hear each voice if possible. Lori Schwartz. Shabbat
Yes,
shalom.
shalom. I just wanted to highlight the pause, that there are many, many realms, and that God comes to us and between us in the silence. And so really, do we meditate? Are we mindful? Or is God's presence what God wants us to do every breath? That when we breathe, it's in between activation and triggers. So if Will Smith could have taken a breath, his body would have released the rage and the terror of the trauma of his childhood. And so what I'd like to just say, you know, that I think it's forever, it's eternal, that we're learning how to love and bond and bestow love from God to each other. And we're still in it. I think the pandemic, for those of us who had trauma before the pandemic, it just made us feel connected to humanity because we were abandoned and isolated and scapegoated, whether we had AIDS, you know. So it brought us all to a living field, but we're still in God's time.
So I love that thought of the redemptive potential of the pause, which sums up so much of what we've read, right? New time, right? New time being renewed. Thank you. Tony. Oh, and Barbara Cecil, I saw you before, but okay, Tony and then Barbara, if you're still here. Go ahead. Tony, you're muted. Tony, you're muted. There you go. Hi.
Following up on Sister Lori's wise words. Pause as the rooms resound with our. It means. What does it mean again, Lori? Pause is something. Postpone action until serenity emerges. Postpone action until serenity emerges, which Will Smith could have used.
Okay, I don't want to talk about Will Smith. I don't want to talk about Will
Smith.
Smith. No.
Okay, getting Will Smith. Let me just fast forward to Psalm 46:10, which is often quoted by the mindfulness monks and others, particularly yogis, suburban yogis and yoginis, which is, be still and know that I am God. But what's interesting to me is if you read that whole psalm, it's in the midst of a, excuse my French, fucking nightmare. It's on the high seas when all is lost. Then be still and know that I am God.
Yeah, wow.
And I love, by the way, shout out to Reb Zusha or Reb Zush, who I think in every way was, in my estimation, as somebody who identifies a lot with Reb Zusha, the original, was in every way a worthy set of echoes of the original Reb Zusha in his